Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, all, and welcome to this fortnight's installment of the IshPlusSix Podcast, the podcast series where you could discover your next favorite artist. On today's episode, I am joined by the one and only Stella Talpo. Stella Talpo is an indie soul singer currently from South London, but also from a myriad of other places that we'll get into a bit more in this episode. Over the past few years, Stella has released 3 EPs, with her most recent EP, Fine, taking a different approach to her writing. Make sure you guys all go and check out Stella's music, available on all platforms. Please welcome Stella Talpo to the podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fortnight's installment of the IshPlusSix Podcast. I, of course, go by Ish, and today I am joined by the one and only Stella Talpo. Let's go. How's it going, Stella? What's up?
Hello. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Ish. I'm really excited to be here and lovely to meet you. So,
It's a pleasure, for real, honestly. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right, by the way. Stella Talpo, is it? Or is it
yeah.
Talpo? Is it?
Well, in Italian it would be talpo, but in English, like English people say talpo.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you,
easy.
do you know what? We can't carry on further without me getting this joke out of the way. Let me just get,
Okay, go for it.
let,
I'm ready.
let me just get what's it called? What is this? Because the thing is, I've seen
Like
people
the
do this.
specific one or all
Yeah,
of them?
yeah, that gesture. What is that? Talk to me about that.
It's many things, but the essence of it is like, what the fuck?
Because the thing is, right, it was I think it was at the Euros last year where I actually saw Italian football players doing that to the ref, and I was like, yo, people actually do that in real life. That's
Uh, but it's like so you're doing it more like this, which
yeah,
looks more like food, but
yeah.
it's actually like a flick of the wrist. So it's like, what the fuck?
It's a real, like, there were different versions of it.
Well, we wouldn't say food, but as in, I grew up in Asia, so this kind of indicates food to me because it's like more like, eating with your hands and
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But the Italian gesticulation is like, it's very relaxed. It's like with the face,
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, so it means what the fuck, but it's different in like, sorry, I am allowed to swear on this, right?
yeah, you are, don't worry.
Um, it has different contexts, but also we have loads of ways of saying the same thing. Like this is another one. Like if you do, let me see. Like what the fuck do you mean?
Okay. And do you find yourself like doing that just in your day to day? Like, do you have to stop yourself? You're
Ah,
like, wait, I'm in London right now.
I
Let
don't
me
have
just
to stop myself. I'm very proud of it because you know what's really funny, yeah? I left Italy when I was 1 years old.
yeah.
So it goes back to that nature nurture thing. Because, like, the only Italian, not the only, but the biggest Italian influences I had in my life were my parents, but I went to a British school. So to me, it's like, it says a lot about how strong it carries in the genetic pool. Because,
Yeah.
like, obviously I learned it at home, but it's just such a part of me. And it's like just a way I express myself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
nothing quite expresses that point, when you have to say something and you're like,
So wait, you said you're okay, do you know what? We'll before we get even deeper into this, we let me just you've seen every episode of the podcast before. Let me just get this
absolutely.
out of the way before we get into it. We always start off with a joke. Today's no different. It's just a one-liner thing. Let's just get it out of the way because
Do I have to
the
make the
no, it's me.
God.
It's like the consistent watchers know. It's like hang on, I thought you'd seen every single episode, Stella. What's
Yeah, I totally did. I watched every single one today.
Yeah. All right. Let me just get it out of the way, just so that people don't come at me. I failed maths so many times at school, I couldn't even count. I don't. That's a joke.
Oh,
Um.
I thought it was gonna be longer.
Well, you were like getting comfortable just to.
I was like, he couldn't even count, and then, like, I thought that was like the first blow. Then there's gonna be another blow.
Nah, that's literally it. I didn't make it up myself, so it's some random internet person who made it up. I'll blame them, not me. So you
Okay.
mentioned you're Italian, but you grew up in Singapore, and like I'm aware that you've grown up in a bunch of different environments, Singapore, Spain, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Um, I'm just curious if that's like changed the way you see the world or anything like that, or if it's more just it's just one of those things that you don't really think about in your day to day.
I think it's probably a bit of both, because I think it's one of those things that's actually quite peculiar and spectacular and amazing. But because it was part of my formative years, I take it for granted. Like, I don't know what it would have been like to be otherwise. So my perception of the world is, I guess, in a way, I don't know what it would be like to not have my perception. So I don't know if it's unique to that experience, but how I think I've been influenced by those things is that I feel like I'm a part, I feel like I belong everywhere and anywhere I go. I don't feel like a stranger or a foreigner anywhere. And I think that's a very strange way to feel. But in the same breath, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like I feel like a chameleon in the way that I'm open-minded and I love different cultures. And I feel like I've lived so many different cultures that like nothing to me feels, I don't know, like everything to me is like human, right? You've had that human experience in so many different ways, but I don't necessarily feel like I belong anywhere, and that's a very strange experience.
Yeah, exactly. You've mentioned that in the past,
Yeah.
how
I'm very
I
honored.
honestly, it's a standard thing that I do for
Yeah,
everyone. It's
obviously. Yeah, I
what's
mean,
that? I was
it
talking
makes
about.
you really good at your job, but I'm very impressed.
I do you know what? What's that thing that Nardwuar says? He's like, "You're Stella Talpo. We have to know," or whatever. I don't know if you know Nardwuar. He's a
That's fucking crazy. How the fuck you know that, bro? You're Travis Scott. We have to know.
It's the Orange Cafe in Hackney Central. Ooh. How do you know that?
Followed you there.
Juice, we gotta know that. That's crazy, bro. Where do you get this information? You are Tory. I'm Tory Lanez. And we have to know. You have to know.
yeah, Nardwuar. He's just a guy who interviews people, and people get weirded out. He's basically almost he's the equivalent of a private investigator in the interview world, basically. So yeah.
You're like, oh, that would be fun. You'd be like, so what do you know?
Bro, he literally he just stands there just listing off like your primary school teachers or something. He's weird, but anyways, um, all right. So would you say that the way you've been, the way you were raised in all of these different countries affected your artistry in any way?
If I was being completely honest, I wish it had done so more. So the thing with Singapore that's really interesting is because it's such a new country and it's very British influence because of the colony and stuff. Um, the music scene is very like new. They haven't found their like underground scenes. I mean, I can't speak for now, but at least when I was growing up there, it was still like very, in its baby stages. And the music we got access to was very Radio One. So I guess apart from the music I would illegally torrent, where I would discover like different genres and subgenres, and then I had my grunge era and shit like that. Like it was very cut and dry, like what I had access to. And again, this is something that I carry a lot of like regret and shame about, but living in a country like that, and being raised there, you don't realize the privilege you have in accessing so much different culture and art. So like when I was little, when we were in school, I learned how to play the gamelan, which is an Indonesian instrument. And like to me, that was just like, I'm just playing the gamelan.
The
But
gamelan.
yeah, I mean, it's such an amazing instrument.
That sounds that Stella. That sounds made up. What do you mean the gamelan?
Yeah, Indonesian gamelan. YouTube it. It's unbelievable. Like it's an incredible instrument, and that was just part of my curriculum, like in school, which is wild to me now. But when you don't have context and it just seems normal, you don't like it's, it doesn't matter. And so like it's just one of those things that I lost and that I didn't like respect in terms of like the culture and stuff, because I mean I was like 6 or 7 or whatever. And in that way I kind of regret not having pulled those sonic things with me. I was so influenced by Western culture, and like I just like had this stargazed idea of like America where dreams come true and stuff. And I think that that tunnel vision kind of robbed me from a lot of like sonic richness that I was surrounded by, which is a shame. And I would love to go back and rediscover those sounds that made up most of my life. So
Do you know what? I'm gonna check. It's gonna be the first thing I check out after this interview's done, because that just sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like one of those things where someone just like, it just sounds made up, you know. But
you think so? Yeah, but you know, I got like one of those like Roland XP60s or whatever, like some of the first sample synths from the 80s, maybe it was the 90s one. And one of the bloody instruments on it was Indonesian gamelan. I was
Really?
like,
What kind of instrument is it? Is it like a string instrument? What
no,
kind?
it's
A
I'm a
percussive,
musician, I should know what this is called. You know what a xylophone is? What do they call it?
percussive percussion.
Yeah, but it makes sound. It's got pitch. Oh my god, my music degree is hang on. What kind of instrument is a xylophone?
I swear it's just percussive, isn't it? Or I might just be, you might be thinking of a different word.
Oh my god, you're so right. But it makes it makes what's the word? It makes pitch. Idiophone. No. Yeah. Duck idiophone. Pluck. Yeah.
That's a new word to me, so I don't know.
So it's like because there's different types of instruments that if you like hit them have pitch, or if you strum them have, you know.
Do you know what? You learn something new every day. I've never
I
heard.
might be completely wrong, and one of your viewers is gonna be like, "She's an idiot."
Do you, do you know what? The people who, there aren't that many commenters who comment on these things, but the people who do are nice, so it's fine. I'm aware that obviously you've lived in a bunch of these places. Before we like move on from there, it also occurred to me that you speak Spanish and Italian, based on like your upbringing and everything. Do you find yourself gravitating towards music of those genres and languages more, or is it really just English that you listen to?
It's a really good question, and I really appreciate that question. Um, I'd never thought about it, but now that you ask that, yes, actually, not just particularly those languages, because Italian music is pretty Radio One as well. Like they're very traditional. Their record labels are very, you know, it's all about the money type stuff. But old Italian music from the 50s and 60s and folk Italian music is amazing and incredibly moving. And I love Spanish music, to be honest with you, be it from South America or from Spain, because they're very different. But like that music, because it's very percussive heavy, it just is so moving. And to me, I guess it's not so much about the language, so much more as the vibe. And in these like Latina cultures, there's such an emphasis on moving your body and dance and like you know, community and joyfulness. And it's the same with African music. You know, I'm not going to remember their name now, but I listened to this Senegalese band that my boyfriend introduced me to, and it just is that kind of music that just transports you to a place of joy. And I think that has a lot to do with first of all, the players, because they're playing with joy, but also that percussive kind of drive. So kind of to answer your question in a really long way, yes, but not because of the language. I'm really, really into wild music. So as much as I listen to like, you know, music that's kind of in my career route, I actually probably wouldn't gravitate to it as much as like wild music. So I listen to that Senegalese band, a lot of Italian folk. I've been getting really into Irish folk at the moment, again because of my boyfriend. But one of the things that people don't know about me is that my favorite genre of music is classical Indian music.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of the music I listen to is actually instrumental world music. So not language specific, but I guess not Western.
So yeah, I have to keep on reminding myself of your situation and your upbringing because when you said Indian classical music, I was about to say something, but then I remembered, oh wait, this is Stella. She grew up in a billion different countries, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think. Wait, what were you gonna say though?
I was gonna
Like,
say, like, what do you mean Indian classical music?
yeah, I always wonder like why it's the only music that like relaxes me if I'm really anxious or something. And they've got some really good playlists on Spotify, like one of their algorithm, whatever, like public playlists. It's one's called Indian classical and one's called Indian ragas. Gonna change your life.
Is so Indian classical music, that's like the stuff with like the mandolins and those the sitar, yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about, yeah, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the tabla.
Tabla.
That's the So yeah, when I did music at high school, I had to study Indian music and like all the different instruments, and it was really intense. And I don't remember any of it. Like I don't remember any Indian music theory, but something must have stuck because I love it so much.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know with like the sitar and stuff like that, they have like those weird sliding between the semitones kind of.
Yeah, completely different scales, completely different time signatures.
Yeah.
It's wild. And I wish I was more nerdy about. Sorry, when I drink Coke about. I wish I was more nerdy about like music theory. When I put my mind to it, I'll remember it. But it just, to me, music is, it can be that mechanical, mathematical thing. But for me, it's so much about feeling. And when I hear music, I don't, unfortunately for me, because it would be so much easier if I had each part separately in terms of arranging my own music, but I hear it as a whole, kind of like entity. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting way to experience, but world music is so beautiful to experience that way because it is just like, I mean, I think it's just spiritual music, right? It just makes you feel freaking alive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting, you mentioned the Latin American music and just Spanish music in general, sort of making you want to move with like the rhythms and that kind of thing. And I'm aware that you have worked with dance and like sort of interpretive kind of body movements in the past. I'm just curious as to how important the visuals are when it comes to your art.
Really important. Visuals in general, or as well as the dancing art.
The dancing. Well, yeah, let's just go with the dancing for this moment.
I think it's like it's it's always been a part of my life because my mum, she was quite new agey and very ahead of her time, and there's this thing called Gabriel Roth, the five rhythms, and the whole thing is you go into a room basically with a bunch of strangers, and there's five different rhythms that will be played over the course of like however many hours. It can go up to 6 hours, and you just dance whatever your body wants to do, like you just let rip. And so she was already like exposing me things like that really early. But I guess when you're a kid and you're trying to figure out who you are in the world and you think that's lame, you kind of resist it. And then as I've been getting older, I used to dance like hip hop and jazz and stuff in school, but I didn't stick it out. And as I got older and I got more connected to my body, and I started doing yoga again, and I went to this retreat that was all about reconnecting to your physical body, not just being in your mind. It became like very, very clear to me how important for our mental health, for our spirit, for our life, for our being, for the like our internal fire it is to like move. Also because like if you think about it, sorry I'm rambling, but if you think about it from a standpoint, like animals, after they've been chased by a predator, they shake like uncontrollably, and that's how they shake off the trauma. That's why animals don't repeat trauma in their life, in their heads, because they shake off everything. um and I think that as humans, we've well, not all humans, Western society has really divorced itself from this like crazy, messy movement, you know, like especially if you're not in the artistic world, there's no like culture around like dancing unless you're going drinking or doing drugs, you know. And so it's important to me because I think that I really want to like spread the message that like to rediscover yourself, you kind of just have to like move and not care about how you look. Or I'm rambling, but I hope I'm getting the point across. It's really, I think that it was one of the greatest things for me to rediscover what it's like to feel free enough to dance again and not care.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned in the past how your music could be seen as, I guess, evolving and fluid. Um, would you ever consider maybe making a track or even a project in a different language? I'm aware that you have got tracks where there are parts in different languages and things like that. Like there was one where it was in like French or something, which,
Italian.
yeah, exactly. But can you ever see yourself making an entire track or project in a different language, maybe?
Yeah, I would really like to. I would really, really love to do one in Italian. I mean, if I was being honest, I'd love to do one in Spanish because who doesn't want to be Rosalia? But um, uh, I wouldn't feel authentic doing that because I didn't live in Spain for very long. And I don't feel like it would be mine to do unless I did it with an actually authentic Spanish or Latin American artist. And it would be really fun because obviously I speak Spanish, but if I was doing it to express myself culturally, it would be Italian, and that would be pretty dope. I would love to do a full Italian album, actually. That would be sick.
How did you find yourself speaking Spanish if you didn't live in Spain for that long? Just out of curiosity.
We moved there when I was like 9, and we were there for 2 years. And Italian and Spanish are basically the same thing. And you know, when you're that age, your brain's a sponge. So
Yeah,
um, a bit short. You know, when you have to learn something because you're in that country, you just do. And I
yeah,
think when you're not as afraid of getting things wrong,
yeah.
I went on to study it in high school. So
Okay. And am I right in thinking then that obviously you moved from Italy when you were 1, if I remember
yeah,
correctly. Um, so I'm assuming your parents had a bit of an influence then in you learning Italian.
yes, they were like they are not very decisive people, and they're not about anything. But the one thing that they both ever agreed on in my regard was that I have to speak Italian. And I really, you know, they had to go up against hell because I was like, no, we're speaking English. And we'd argue. And they would argue at me in Italian, and I would scream back in English because I was like, I don't want to speak Italian. You know, when you're a kid, you're just a brat. I was definitely a brat. But they were just so headstrong about it. And I'm so grateful for that.
That sounds like the funniest thing ever. And do you know what? I'd love to be like a fly in the wall, maybe with subtitles, but a fly in the wall just to see this interaction going down. Just
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll be on the phone with my parents now and like, you know, Spanglish, where it's like Spanish mixed with English.
no.
So there's actually a film called Spanglish. I don't actually remember what the origins of the word is, but like how I interpret it is like this mix of it's when you like mix words of both languages. And when you're a kid and you're bilingual, your brain doesn't fire that quickly. So I used to speak half Italian, half English sometimes. And like, for example, in Italian, joking is scherzare, but I used to say you must be scherzing. So like the scherz is the Italian and then the ing is the English, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. So you just don't know how to differentiate. So my parents had a really good time because a lot of the time I was just making up words in like Italianish because they don't have Spanglish. It's Italianish,
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. But now my friends will walk past me whilst I'm on the phone with my parents, and I'll be like, blah, 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 yeah, and eggs. Blah, 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 blah. You know, there's like
Yeah.
certain words that just don't come as fast that are just like it's. But if I'm arguing, it's in English because
Oh, really?
that's where I'm quick. That's where I know how to push buttons in English.
Yeah. Yeah, to be fair, that makes sense. And I just out of my for my own curiosity, which one do you think in?
I think in English, but if I'm in Italy for like a week or so, I start to think and dream in Italian.
And dream in Italian. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it takes about a week of getting back into it. But in terms of my writing, my songwriting and stuff, English comes way quicker. And I think becoming a writer as a like dream and career was always a very English experience. So
Yeah. We'll focus on your music a bit more. Um, cool. So, okay, your EP came out in June. EP called Fine, and it, from my interpretation, it seemed a lot more, um, I guess you could say cathartic, if that makes sense, but at the same time, a little bit more raw. So, especially with like the black and white kind of aesthetic going on. That kind, what led to you taking that direction with your art?
um it was definitely a series of events. Um I think I got really comfortable making melancholic music because that was kind of the frequency that I grooved in for a while. This kind of like helpless, victimy, simmering ocean that I lived in for a little bit. Not to say there's anything bad with that, as in it's just habitual space that I found to be my comfort zone. And as I started peeling away the layers of like, conditioning and past trauma and stuff, I started feeling like I was getting to know myself better. And it kind of felt like, I don't know how to describe it. It was like this need to use my voice more and to find my inner strength and my power rather than always hold it down, which is something that I used to do, is just kind of like be polite and be soft and be palatable and stuff because I didn't want to be too much. And I think with this record, my biggest focus was that I didn't want to sing. I know there's a sad song in the record, but like I didn't want to sing too many sad songs anymore on stage. I really wanted to have fun and I wanted to energize people because I felt like when I go to gigs and feel energized, I feel inspired, I feel like I can achieve anything, I feel really good. And I didn't necessarily mind what I was doing before because I think that, if your art is authentic to you, it still touches people. But I guess how I wanted to touch people emotionally just changed because how I felt emotionally was changing. So I was finding my strength as a woman and as an artist, and I wanted to get a bit more messy and have a bit more fun. And I think that's why the sonic world took that shape. Um, and I'm really excited about it. I think that I want to go harder though, because originally I was a rock chick when I was little, so um,
Yeah,
I feel like that's coming through a little bit more. Um,
I'd say so. Yeah, especially on tracks like Tarantino and things like that.
mm.
And I mean, even with Tarantino, it's got some of your more, I guess you could say, self-reflective. I mean, all of your music is relatively self-reflective, but like, it's more we could do better as people, in terms of this, it's time to wake up and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm just curious as to like what the story is behind that one, if it's any different in any way to what you just said about the EP as a whole, or if it's got its own background to it.
Yeah, I think sonically that one's probably closer to the more soul R&B traditional vibe, but it has that kind of Western guitar that brings in the Tarantino theme. I think it's less like, I guess that one's less vocally aggressive and energetic, but to it's more supposed to provoke the listener to think about stuff. Um, And it came during a time where I mean, I've written a song like it that's more politically influenced called Babies before. And Babies was written about Piers Morgan, actually.
Okay.
It was
No, I'm just cute. Do you know what? We'll get into that in a minute, but yeah, carry on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a whole ass story in itself. But yeah, it was kind of this thing where I'm like, I felt frustrated at myself because I was like consumed by the stuff that not people, but like the material capitalist world wanted me to be consumed by, and I felt desensitized. So like, it was around the time that there was that whole issue arising with Palestinian, cities being bombed and stuff. And it's not the first time that news like that moved me so much, and I felt so far removed from it, and like I couldn't do anything. But also, there's this whole thing where when we're this far away in the West, it's almost like we're so numb because like we have our routine, we have our phones, we have everything that we know, and this is really comfortable. And I guess I was just really angry at myself because I felt angry, but I have no right to be angry if I'm not doing anything to change it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Was it like an anger at you not being able to do anything, or I
anger of not knowing what I could do? Because like obviously you can do all the bits that you can do, which is like to write to your local MP, to donate and stuff like that, and I do that as much as I possibly can. I guess it's more like it was more about the conversation of like the human conflict that began, like the Palestinian situation triggered the song to begin with, but it was really a song that encapsulated the whole drama that began with COVID and this duality, like this like very extremist situation that was happening between human beings. And we saw it with BLM and George Floyd, and then we saw it with the vaccine. And like that's why there's the lyric in the second verse that says, God, I'm not even going to be able to quote myself.
it's okay.
Basically about, if you are so hell-bent on trying to make somebody else believe your belief, I believe that means that you have doubt. Because if you truly believe your truth, you don't need anybody else to believe it with you. You are so consolidated in that truth that you don't need to preach, you don't need to convert, and I'm not talking in a religious sense, even though that probably also applies to that, but it's more so like, these very extremist groups that are like bubbling up in all over the world. It's just like your anger indicates an issue you have with yourself, not with the groups that you spit hate on. So yeah, the song actually covers a lot of stuff, but it was about this kind of this split, this crazy extremism that was happening, and like this, it was kind of happening because we're so like consumed by the world that and the whole Tarantino line was that people are killing each other on the street, but I feel nothing because I've watched so many Tarantino films that I'm basically like, yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm
he's
not
got like
myself, and I'm very blessed that that has not been my experience. But it's like, that thing that they say about video games, like kids are getting so desensitized to shooting people that they don't know what effect that's going to have on their brain.
Yeah.
The minute, for example, with global warming, the minute global warming starts to impact the really wealthy in the Western countries, then you will see change.
Exactly.
Those are not the people who are being impacted. So those, and that kind of like, I mean, that's the extreme version of what I was saying in Tarantino. You're so separate from the reality that you can't. And that's why the line is, are we still human? Because humanness is not to turn a blind eye, although some people might argue that we could go a whole ass conversation on that and extrapolate human nature and stuff. But I personally believe that human nature is love, and anything other than that is just born out of fear and unfortunate events in your life that have meant you have created hate in your heart, which is not how you were born. Babies are not born that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, cool. We'll move on from that a little bit. Just before we move on, actually, what made you go with the black and sorry, pardon?
I thought you were going to talk about babies, the song about Piers
Oh,
Morgan.
right. Yeah, okay, real quick. Just a quick explanation of what do you mean about Piers Morgan?
So Piers Morgan wrote a really hateful tweet about Meghan Markle years ago, and I was so fucking pissed because who is this guy? And he he pisses me off on the daily, but that tweet was really just
His
so hate in his heart.
his
You know,
interviews are pretty frustrating to watch.
that's hate. And I don't know if you saw his the way he mocked the interview the other day. Oh my god, this man is putrid, like putrid. And like there were moments where I did agree with him during COVID. I was like, oh my god, he's growing a heart. No,
Yeah.
he did not, you know. And so I wrote that song because the song is literally about trying to reconnect with your inner child, because I really think that his inner child is crying out for help.
Yeah.
Like his inner child has not played or danced or done anything fun in a long time. And the chorus lyric is, I wonder what your mother did to you to make you hate yourself so much.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at what you're saying.
No.
Just-
I was like, I'm ready to tear this guy down. I mean, I'm also terrified of him, like, don't get me wrong. So
Yeah.
if he ever watches this, please, don't kill me.
Do you know what it is? It's not even that. It's just the way you said, wow, I'm actually agreeing with Piers Morgan.
Yeah, because like I'm not a hateful person. If you I'm a seeker of truth, you know. So if you're disagreeing with me, but you're right, my main priority is to find the truth in what you're saying, not to disagree with you for my ego or for my pride. I I think it's important for us to listen to different opinions and arguments, because then we grow as people, right? And like that way I'm not stuck in my own brain and wherever. But this guy is just spouting hate. And so yeah, I just basically I wanted to write a compassionate song that was like, I'm really sorry that whatever made you this way did it, because you're really mean. You're
Yeah.
a really mean guy. Like why, how can you be so mean?
Something must have happened. Yeah, it's crazy. Because
Yeah.
no, I was watching one of his interview. Well, I was watching I've never watched a full interview of his, but yeah, I've watched like a couple of the shorter ones on like Good Morning Britain or whatever. But he's the most frustrating person to listen to when it comes to him interviewing someone. Like I was watching his interview, a clip of it with Kanye the other day. This guy Kanye couldn't get a full sentence out without Piers interrupting him. I'm looking at this like, let the guy talk. You know what I mean?
Like,
And
this is what I mean. Like, isn't being an interviewer about listening? Like, this guy just has a platform for clickbait. He's literally living human flesh clickbait, because I guess, I mean, we're talking about him now, so he's done the job, right? And now I'm really angry that I've spoken about him.
we can cut it out. We can cut it
him
all out.
airtime. That guy does not deserve airtime.
So you've released 3 EPs over the course of your time making music, unless I'm mistaken, and you've taken some down.
No, that's it.
No? Yeah, so you've released 3 EPs. What can we expect to see next from you before what can we expect to see next from you, Stella?
So, I have a couple of songs came out in the last month. They're like the acoustic versions of a couple of songs from the Fine EP, and the third acoustic version will come out in January of Where Did I Go? And that will make like just a small acoustic EP, just of me in my living room, just playing the songs myself. And it's the first project I've done completely alone, which is awesome. And then if I can overcome this creative mountain block, a new EP will be coming in the spring. And I don't want to like confirm anything, because I think it's still like very much in its baby stages, but it's good. The project is a lot more about like the divine feminine and like feminine energy energy, because I feel like that's a side of me that I'm kind of trying to grow into at the moment. So it seems to be going that way. It might completely transform in the next couple of months. I don't know yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. When do you reckon that EP would be coming out?
Um, if I had it my way and I left my ego at the door and I could write this record without freaking out every time I sit down at the piano, it will be out probably early April. And that is my goal. So, I mean, that's what we have in the diary, me and my label. So it will come out, definitely. It's just whether or not it will be, you know, at my perfectionist levels of happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Cool. Before we go on to like the last couple, what made you go with the black and white theme for Fine and the also the stripped back versions as well of some of the tracks?
um So I guess like with the visuals, I kind of like I'm quite controlling and I plan everything with everything. But with visuals, I tend to just wait for the inspiration, like the idea to come. And I was scrolling and browsing, and I saw this picture by a photography duo called Les Guzman of Rachel Weisz, and it was taken in 2000. And it's basically her, kind of how I was placed with the wet hair, and it looks like she's been dragged through the mud and stuff. And so the black and white wasn't so much a decision to have monochrome as it was just so inspired by that image. And I kind of loved how the placement of the face and the black and whiteness actually is very, it kind of alluded to Catholic religious imagery, which is obviously very Italian. And this, yeah, it was very cinematic, I suppose, the black and white. And I wanted my visuals to be cinematic, as though they were almost like a song of the EP. You know, I want the visuals to be as important as the songs are. They've all been really carefully considered.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really just inspiration, and then I just loved the way it made me. It just reminded me of that kind of like Catholic imagery. Very. The word's not coming to me, but it will.
Yeah. It will after we're done it with the interview.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
It's one of those ones. Um, cool. So, okay, I do have one more question before I let you go on your way, Stella. Um, you are heard
yes.
by everyone on Earth for 10 seconds. What do you say?
Oh my God.
What do you say?
I have to think about that.
10 sec. No, I'm joking. You have as much time as you need.
I'm gonna get this wrong because when I get anxious, I just forget everything. Can it be a ramble?
It, do you know what? Sure. Shall I ask it in a bit more of a calm tone? Stella, you
No.
are heard by everyone on for 10 seconds. What do you say? Is that a bit more calming?
It's not you that's not calming, it's that I want to get it right. I would say you have so much to offer the world. Do not do the world the injustice of extinguishing your light in order to be something you're not. To please other people, you know what I mean? Just it would be an injustice for the world if you were not your authentic self. And so just I guess yeah. I could go on forever, but I really just want people to know that loving others starts with loving yourself, and that's a journey, but it's a really meaningful and fulfilling one.
Absolutely, yeah. Cool.
I wish I could have said like several other things, but I only had 10 seconds, and I think I overran my 10.
It's okay. Do you know what? It's one of those ones where you'll probably be in like the shower or something tomorrow, and you'll be like, "Man, why didn't I say that?" You know. So
I'm 100% gonna do that for the next week.
what? Just for the entirety of next week? Just
Yeah, I'll be like, oh my God. Because you know, sometimes you think you're really wise, yeah? I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, why didn't I have that insight during the Oh my God, I phrased it so much better today.
Do you know what? If I was like at the point in my musical career or whatever where I was getting interviewed by people, I'd make sure that I was getting them all done while I'm showering because I turn into like the greatest. I get onto like Plato, Socrates, all of that
Yes.
kind of level when I'm
Do you
in the
know what I
shower.
mean?
So
Yes. Do you know, like, honestly, I have written my Grammy. No, I have not written. I have said my Grammy speech in my head so many times. And this started when I was like 7 or 8. So I've written hundreds. And I swear to God, if I ever have the blessing of being at that point in my career, not that I think that is the only sign of success, but if, I will probably be like, okay, thank you so much, Barry.
exactly. Man, it's just
This is such an honor. I don't know what to do with myself. I'll embarrass myself in front of legends. That will be me.
exactly.
But yeah, it is what it is. Hey, you know, at least we can be philosophers in the shower.
That's low key. That's a hard quote. At least we can be philosophers in the shower. That's
That can
crazy.
be that can be the little sub quote you use to promote this podcast.
100%.
It's like I
Okay.
swear I sound smart in the shower.
Yeah, exactly. I might just use that actually as the title. But yeah, before we get into another tangent, Stella, I think that's a good place to end off this episode. Stella, do you have anything you'd like to say to the listeners or your fans before we end off this episode?
I would really like to say, well, thank you for listening to this. I really appreciate it. And I thank you for listening to my music. And if you haven't yet, and you do, you have no idea how something so small could mean so much to me. So I hope that it can take you on a journey and that it also invites you to join this ride, this crazy ass ride with me. um, it's not going to be some smooth sailing, but it will be nice to have you along. Yeah, I think that's basically it. But just fat thank you, and thank you, Ish, for having me, because it just feels good to have a chat, to be honest. And I appreciate your questions very much. They were awesome, like so dope. It makes for a really great chat.
Please don't inflate my ego. It's already too big.
There's no way, honey. There's no way that your ego is any way as big as Piers Morgan. So you're good.
As long as it's smaller than Piers Morgan's, that's fine.
That's your barometer. Do you know what I mean? Like, just check yourself.
Exactly.
When you start becoming a famous interviewer and stuff, I mean, you're pretty famous already, but when you get like wherever Piers Morgan is, and you start going, oh my God, am I too big an ego? Just look at him, and he'll guide your life. I don't know. It's Saturday night, guys. I'm tired. It's been a long year.
Exactly.
I'm
All right.
talking so much shit.
We'll end it off here. We'll end it off here. But yeah, listeners of the IshPlusSix podcast, watchers, thank you for watching. Stella, thank you for appearing on this episode. And yeah, I will see you later. Oh wait, no, keep it real, and I will see you later, alligators.